Hello, welcome to episode 1 of Madeline's AmeriMemories. Before I get into my story, as far as my experiences in AmeriCorps, I'd like to give a little bit of background as to what sort of led up to me joining and how I found out about the program in the first place. So, I guess you could say that this started way, way back in high school and possibly earlier. But when I was in high school, I was diagnosed with depression. I was 16. I was a junior in high school, and for months, I'd noticed, and my family had noticed too, that my whole attitude had sort of changed. My behavior had changed. The way I went about everything had changed. I'd gotten really dark, really apathetic, really, well, depressed. So, yeah, I was finally like diagnosed with depression when I was a junior and got put on some medication for it. Um, but yeah, that was the last 2 years of high school were not real great, mostly because of the mental health issues. And that kind of sucked because like when I started high school, I actually really liked it. I was always a good student. You know, I was A's and B's. I was very conscientious. And when I got to high school, I did drama. We had a drama department, and all throughout high school, I was in every show we did. I performed in all 9 shows, 4 plays, 4 musicals, and a one act. I was very, very active in the performing arts. I did choir all 4 years. I did band my senior year. And I was also involved in journalism. I was on my high school newspaper for 2 years. I enjoyed the writing bit, and I became sort of a decent photographer, but it wasn't quite my thing. But I did do that sort of as an extracurricular. Um, I did advanced classes. I was a part of the National Honor Society. I was actually the president of the National Honor Society. I always forget that and forget that it's actually sort of a big deal, but it didn't feel like a big deal because I didn't do shit. Um, but yeah, one of the things that you actually have to do as part of the NHS is you do have to do volunteer work. You have a certain number of hours that you are expected to devote to community service every semester and during the summer. So I already kind of had some experience with volunteering. And also just through various fundraisers and stuff that happened throughout school, middle school and high school, they'd ask for donations to various causes and charities. And I was always very willing to do that. And I was always I always wanted to help. I always cared about the world, I guess, and other people. And I wanted to do something to make the world better, I guess. Um, so yeah, when I got depressed, I didn't care. I thought the world was really, really dark, really scary, really shitty. Um, and just there was no point, and there was no point for my life. I really didn't see anything for myself like after high school. I had I could see like okay, things are going to happen this year and the next year and whatever, but like once graduation from high school came around, like I didn't really know what was going to happen. Like it was just like a nebulous void. Like I didn't really have a direction. Um it's like I knew that I was going to go to college because I was a really smart kid and got really good grades and was a good student, and so I have to go to college. It was just always sort of expected that I would, and I didn't really want to. I mean, I couldn't really think of anything better to do, but I also didn't really want to. Like, I felt I didn't really, there wasn't really something that I wanted to pursue specifically. I mean, I had some ideas, but college just didn't feel right, but at the same time, like, I didn't know what else to do, and my mom especially was like really pushing for college, and my grandma wanted me to go to college, and yeah, so high school, I finally graduated. I hit the senior slide real bad, but I still managed to graduate and graduate with a pretty good GPA still. I don't even remember what it was, but it was still pretty good. But yeah, I really didn't care about college, like the whole college application process and everything. Like my mom did most of that. I just did not care. Like when I did my ACT, it's like, okay, list up to like 4 schools or whatever to send your application to for free. And she's like, you need to pick like 4 schools, or I'm gonna pick them for you. And I'm just like, whatever, because I did not care. I didn't care about anything as a teenager. Um, so yeah, I eventually did go to school. And when I started college in the fall of 2013. And yeah, so when I got there, my depression actually seemed a little better for a little bit, because it's like I have a new experience. I'm out of the house, God, the last year or two I was living at home. Like I was fighting all the time with my parents, especially my mom. It's like every conversation we had would always devolve into an argument. Like I was not a pleasant person to be around. But I went to college, and at first things were okay. But then things kind of went downhill. I stopped attending class. I stopped turning in assignments. I I really slid, and by the time October had rolled around, I was like, okay, like this isn't good, because I'd had several spells where I would just like go up to my dorm room and like lie on my bed and stare at the ceiling and cry, just because I felt so bad. And so there was counselors available for us at the college that I went to, and so I decided to go to one. The thing is, I was 17 when I started college, and when I made the appointment to go see this therapist, I actually got an email back saying, it's like, you're technically still a minor, so we need to have like a parent or guardian's permission for you to actually for you to see the counselor. And I'm just like, I'm gonna be 18 in literally another week. Can we just like schedule the appointment ahead? So yeah, there was that. So I did arrange to see a counselor. I saw my very first depression appointment was the day after my 18th birthday. My parents came up to see me. We went out for my birthday. I pretended like everything was fine, and then the next day I went in and talked about how shitty my life was. Because yeah, I didn't really want to. I didn't want to tell my parents about how bad I was doing. I felt really ashamed and really guilty. But yeah, so I go to this counselor up at my college, and I just explained to her, it's like, I think I went to college for the wrong reasons. I don't think I don't think I went to college in the best frame of mind. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted. And so she's talking about, it's like, well, that's fine. Like, a lot of people your age don't really have things figured out. So, there's this you can do, there's that you can do. Have you heard of AmeriCorps? And I was like, no. And she's like, okay, yeah, it's this volunteer program that you can do. A lot of young people do it. You should look into it. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, I had a couple sessions with this counselor, and then due to my depression and the fact that I was sleeping at just weird hours, I ended up missing 2 appointments, and then I just crashed, and I just felt horrible. And I remember when I went home for Thanksgiving, I finally broke down to my parents and explained what was going on. And yeah, so after that first semester, like I went home after my first semester, around Christmas time, and I wasn't going back. I was not in a state of mind to be going to college. So we went back up, and we got all my stuff from my dorm and moved back. And one thing I was able to do, because I had done so badly in all my classes, I'd failed everything. I'd failed every single class. And so one thing I was able to do, because I had gone to this counselor and I talked to her, I was actually able to get a medical withdrawal. So my bad grades were like, I was given a clean slate, so it was like, oh, okay, there's that. Now I can actually like focus on doing other things. So I was at home, was not feeling well. I eventually found a therapist back home, started seeing her pretty regularly and kind of working through my depression and my mental health. And it's like I knew I needed to do something. I was not in a position to do anything for a really long time. But yeah, so I kind of started to do this, And I got a job. I got a second job. I kind of started, doing things for myself, going out and doing things, and starting to feel a little better, a little more autonomous. I kind of slowly started crawling out of my little hole. But time went on. When I started seeing this therapist, it was like seeing her every week, and then seeing her every other week, and then seeing her a couple times a month. But then it got to a point where it's like there wasn't a whole lot we could talk about anymore because we'd already kind of talked about everything, and I was kind of starting to stagnate. Like I didn't really need the counselor anymore necessarily, but I still wasn't in the best place. But it's like I needed to do something. Like I was still at home and I was like a little too comfortable, and I needed to do something. And I was still thinking about AmeriCorps like this whole time. It's like, oh yeah, that actually does sound like something I'd do. Like that does actually sound like a program I could get into. Just because of, the focus on community service, and, you live out of a backpack and you travel around and do all these different things. But I was so nervous and like intimidated by the idea of doing this because it's like I'd never done anything like this before, and like the last time I had moved away from home to better myself had not gone well. So yeah, I was nervous for a really long time, but I did eventually start an application and kind of start working on it. And my therapist was kind of like talking me through it too. Like, okay, what are the pros of doing AmeriCorps? What are the cons of doing AmeriCorps? What are the good things that could happen? What are the bad things that could happen? The good things, it's like, well, I could travel, I could make friends, friends who had sort of a similar mindset, a similar conscientiousness. I could make an impact in the community. I could maybe find a boyfriend or something because, yeah, boys in high school. I had a few crushes, but none of them were successful in like the last year and a half of high school. It's just like, I hate boys. Like, all of you are just idiots, and I hate all of you. So yeah, it's like listing all the potential good things. It's like I can get a scholarship. So if and when I do decide to go back to college, I'll actually have a bit of money. This will look very good on a resume. It'll help build teamwork skills and communication skills and whatnot. Life experience. And the cons were, well, I could break down again. My depression could get worse. But the thing was, when I was reading about this, it's like there are counselors available at AmeriCorps. So I was like, well, okay, I think if I go and do this thing, if something really bad happens, like I will have someone to talk to. I'll have somebody to lean on. So maybe that won't be so bad. And yeah, eventually, just thinking about it and processing it eventually after months. Like it took me months to finish the application, filling out, my employment and, saying what schooling I'd had and whether or not I had a criminal record and just all these other little things. And then the essay. The essay was what really made me nervous because it's like you have to write this essay explaining basically why you want to join. And I was so nervous and so obsessed with this essay. And that took me so long to submit. So yeah, since I spent so long working on it and it stressed me out so much, I figured I'd read it just for the heck of it. Why not? Okay, so I wrote, I found out about AmeriCorps during a very dark time in my life. It was in the middle of my first semester of college where a school therapist was counseling me for severe depression. I told her that I felt I had gone to college for the wrong reasons and that I didn't feel ready for it. She told me that was common for people my age and that there were other routes in life I could take before going back to school if I decided to come back at all. This is when she mentioned AmeriCorps. I had never heard of it, and she explained its premise of helping others and building and improving people's lives all over the country. This struck a chord with me, but unfortunately there were too many things going on. The depression did not improve, and my first semester of college became my last. I returned home, and as the months went by, I got to get better. One major turning point was learning that getting help was not a weakness, and began doing some deep thinking. I began to see people as interconnected, and that the actions of one person can leave a lasting impact. Valuing, helping, and improving life for others are essential for valuing, helping, and improving life for oneself. AmeriCorps still lingered in the back of my mind, but for a long time I was uncertain about whether it was a path I was willing to commit to. I started an application but was intimidated. I had never made a major decision like this on my own before. Even going to college wasn't really something I had planned out. But after doing some research and realizing that the potential benefits outweighed the potential drawbacks, I began to move forward. I've always been a very altruistic person. Even as a child, I had strong sympathies for social issues and charitable causes. For several Christmases, I didn't want anything for myself, and instead asked my family to donate to nonprofit organizations in my name. I also gave a lot of my own money to school fundraisers such as Pennies for Patients. I've always wanted to save the world, and joining AmeriCorps would be a great way to fulfill that desire. I would also like to be able to gain experience and grow as a person. Teamwork, diligence, and creativity are skills I feel I already possess, but they would be further honed by serving, and would be applicable to a variety of fields and situations. Also, the educational funds provided by AmeriCorps would be incredibly helpful, and would allow me to pursue the knowledge and skills I need to continue to make a positive impact and be a productive member of society after my service is over. In conclusion, I wish to join this organization to both benefit myself as well as those around me. So yeah, basically what I had already explained earlier in this video, but I finally submitted the application. I submitted it on July 4th because America. And yeah, I was really looking forward to it. I remember that that day, that July 4th, I was alone. I was alone a lot at that point. I really didn't talk to anybody or interact with anybody, but yeah, I submitted my application. I went down to a local Dairy Queen and got one of their little red, white, and blue Star Kiss things, and watched fireworks that were going on, and got a lot of mosquito bites. But yeah, I was alone. But I had a lot of hope, I guess, that I was going to do this, and I had a good chance of getting in, and whatever was going to happen, like, I could do this. Like, there was adventure out there waiting for me, and opportunities waiting for me, and, you know, I eagerly awaited for the response. And obviously I did get it, but I think I will talk about all of that in the next video, since this is already a little longer. Well, I should probably just stop. Alright, so next video I will talk about the application process. It's not super exciting, but there were a couple of fun little things that happened during that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you hopefully in another week or so with episode 2 of Madeline's AmeriMemories.